Hey team, Corey back again. Okay, this video you probably already know. Of course, we're going to be going over essentially how the statistics in the game works for your Pega. There's a lot of questions about it, I understand that, and really we said don't worry about it, they don't have too much effect. I should probably take a step back and say statistics and variables do have an effect. However, what you see in your profile is variable. So what you're seeing changes. And they're not your baseline statistics as well. In this video, I'll really break it down for you guys so you have an idea of how it works. I should also note before I deep dive into it that things change. So of course what we have now is what we think will be good. However, as more testing does come, as more players do come, and we look at the data, possibly this isn't the route. Our core thesis, the thing that we stand by most, is no pay to win, and yin and yang, mean you can't have something good without getting something bad. You can't have a gain without having a loss. That type of situation. That's not to do with your winning and losing of the race. That's to do with your Pega statistics and balance. So you can't have the best Pega and boost it all the way to the top just because you have more money than other people. If you decide to give it a boost of some sort in the future with gear or food, it's going to take away something else. And that philosophy sticks true through the entire system. So what I did, because I saw the question asked so much in the community, is actually go and ask the devs to kind of break it down for me in layman terms, something that I would understand so that I could share it to you guys. Now it is, of course, a lot more complex on the back end, but for us, the end result, it basically works like this. And I have a couple notes here from them, so if you see me reading it, that's probably why. But every Pega essentially has basic stats. What you see in your profile is not the basic stats. We are actually keeping the basic stats of each Pega hidden. And the reason we do that is because it is a variable and it will change through development. This is more so just leaning towards, the meta imbalances which happen naturally in games. You can never have the perfect game. The perfectly balanced game generally doesn't exist, and updates are always going to happen. So the reason we keep those hidden for now is because they're a work in progress and we're testing different things. With the basic statistics, so the ones that you can't see, they are fair across all 4 bloodlines. So there's no single dominating bloodline like Hoz is way better than Zahn or Campona and Clin. There's not one dominating bloodline with these statistics. It is fair across the board. Secondly is the stats that you guys see in your account. As I mentioned earlier, that they are variables. So you'll notice it isn't like a +2, +3. This is just literally a percentage. So some of them have 0% gain. That doesn't mean your statistics are 0. It just means you don't have a 0% benefit in this certain thing, whatever happens to be speed. When we say speed as well, there's actually benefits to having low speed. So yeah, just consider this as I explain it moving forward. When we talk about the tracks and how they affect the Pega itself, it'll make a bit more sense. But just note, those statistics that you guys are seeing are actually going to actively change as you're playing, depending on the performance in races and many other factors as well. But those things are actually variables. And the track also has different variables every single time. So there's not really one shoe fits all, and you generally can't actually plan. So this is really where I start to talk about the actual tracks. And this is probably where the least information has really ever been available. So the tracks themselves, some of you may have seen an old video, but the tracks themselves actually have variables on them, just like your Pega. They probably actually have a lot more variables than the Pega themselves, but the Pega's bloodline, the Pega's attributes as well, all kind of relate to the track. So some examples that I was given here is for the racetrack, say humidity, the light intensity, the direction of the racetrack, the direction of the wind intensity, the temperature. These all affect your Pega. Now, those statistics, those words that you've seen there, aren't what you see on the Pega. You'll just see some of its performance in speed, some of its performance in water, in fire, electricity, and some other things. But generally, they are related in some way. And as the game goes on, you guys are going to learn that. I'm not going to tell you the full ins and outs. I do want you guys to do some discovery as well. So just note that I'm not going to just give you a full walkthrough. This is part of a beta launch, and you guys get to experience it as it comes out. So on the track, you will be able to see really like a dominant element, which relates back to the Pega themselves. You know, Campona, for example, fire. If the track is a fire element, of course, Campona being the Pega for fire, it's obviously going to be better suited. Now, how much that weighs, it's not a guarantee win again, because there's so many other variables that do come on top of it. But that's where your bloodline does generally come into play. Now, it should be noted that that is fair. Each bloodline has 4 elements, 1 element each, I should say, and the track has a random element that it potentially will say that it does have. You know, it might have high intensity fire, or high intensity wind. Each one is going to have a different variable. That means it suits a different Pega each time. Once you enter into a lobby, you may get one that's kind of leaning towards wind, and you might have Clin. I don't actually remember off the top of my head. There's too many things that I'm thinking about right now, but let's say that it's Clin. Clin is suited towards this track, and then you might have 3 Clin in that lobby. They'll have a slight upper edge. However, there might be a Zahn that is better suited to the other variables on the track, and that's going to give it another edge. So generally it's going to even out. But then on top of that, the results aren't based primarily on these small things. There is RNG on top of that as well. So there's a lot for you guys to consider, but this really does come back to the core thesis of us not wanting to have a pay-to-win scenario where anyone can come in and choose the best Pega and they know what track they're going to compete in. They only choose those tracks. You guys have to remember our ecosystem is off of initially randomness. That also means with the lobbies, you've got an instant matchmaking lobby system where you converse against a Campona, a Zahn, a Hoz, a Clin. There could be every single bloodline in the same race. It's because the bloodlines don't determine the race results. Also, your statistics that you see on each individual Pega are variable. They don't determine the actual results. What does is just your luck when you do enter that lobby. Now, of course, I know a lot of people are saying it right now, well, if I don't get a suited lobby and I decide to leave, I'll just keep joining one until I find one that suits. Once you join the lobby, you're set in stone. The Pega, even if you close the browser, the Pega is still in that race. You can't back out. This makes it as fair as possible, guys. So you just have to consider the top 3 placements. There's 12 people in the race total. The top 3 placements, do the law of averages, and you really could kind of predict what your earnings would be on a bit of a rolling scale. So yes, I guess that does clear it up just a little bit. As I said, our thesis, not pay to win, but also yin and yang. There's so many layers to this, guys, and I know it probably maybe was even a little bit more confusing after this video, but if you just take a step back and have a look at it, the direction where the game is going to where it is now, very different, very, very different. We can't just release a game that's going to have just basic RNG. If you enter a lobby, maybe you win, maybe you don't, but there's no variables on the Pega, but we introduce that into the future, and it makes people who are used to the game in our beta release kind of have to learn the entire game again, or wonder why there's so many variables. We want to introduce it at the start to get you guys used to it, to get you guys thinking, to really learn the mechanics. And then when we start introducing, you know, player controlled or different types of elements or small boosts, the opportunity to change around all the parts, when that does come around, you guys are going to be far more familiar with the scenario, the reason why that we have done these things. But for now, I know it can be a little bit complex, but just know if you have a Zahn, if you have a Hoz, and you decide to race and you enter into the same lobby, you guys entered that race with the same opportunity to win. Whether or not you do win, depending on the statistics of your Pega at that time, is entirely random. It's depending on which lobby that you did enter, and that's just how it's going to be for the beta release. As we move forward, full player controlled, different scenario. And you're probably wondering why. What's the benefit to a Hoz? Why would you spend whatever the resale value is on the market at the moment? Possibly you're looking at this in the future after game launch as well. Well, the simple fact is people like collector's items, and we don't like pay to win. So it comes back to the same thing that I always relate it to, is why buy a Mystic Axie when right now in its PvP mode there's no benefit to it. It's simply a collector's item. If you're not a collector, then you don't see any benefit to it. Great. If you're a breeder, then there's going to be a lot of benefits to the Hoz as well. But when it comes to racing, it needs to be fair when it's random. So yes, hopefully that was a decently clear breakdown for you guys. As I said, you shouldn't be buying your Pega based on what the statistics say in your backend right now, because those are variable. Statistics do mean something, but those statistics that you see right now don't mean anything at this moment. So when the race releases, that'll be a variable. You have your base statistics that you can't even see, and then you have the stadium statistics, which you see once you enter that stadium. So that's it, guys. Hopefully I explained it. Again, I'm sorry I'm kind of like dawdling on, but yes, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for the amazing questions. If you want anything else, just reach out to the community and they'll bring it back to me and tell me to make a video. I'll see you next time.